everybody gets to know the same knowledge, right? So how are you going to set yourself apart?
That is Sue Bethanis, founder and CEO of Mariposa Leadership. For the past 30 years, she's coached high-tech leaders through the dot-com boom, the Great Recession, COVID, and now she's helping leaders navigate what she calls the AI revolution, a human disruption as much as a technological one.
We need to put our coaching hat on, and we need to be empathetic to people's experience and let people experiment.
This conversation isn't really about AI, it's about why some leaders create resistance during change, while others build resilience. Sue shares why the leaders who thrive won't simply adopt new technology, they'll act as change agents, lead with empathy, and create the confidence people need to embrace what's next.
Someone asked me once, like, how do you define resilience? And I said, well, expect change.
So Sue, for the past 30 years, you've been helping leaders navigate massive change. Starting with the dot-com bust, then there was a Great Recession, COVID, of course, and now AI. What do you think it is about this moment that is so much different than all the others?
Yeah, there's been a lot going on in all that over the last 30 years. No question that right now it's a no-collar economy now. So it makes knowledge workers impacted like they've never been before. So people are questioning what they have known before is good enough. And it's not. It really never was. What you've known in the past and what you've learned means you got to keep learning, right? So now we really have to do it because the AI basically, and I say it affectionately, the AI, the robot, pretty much makes everything the same. Like everybody gets to know the same knowledge, right? So how are you going to set yourself apart? You do that through critique, through discernment, through judgment. Okay, that's the first thing. So that's why this is, I think, acutely different. Now, what's been happening over the last 30 years that I've noticed is that, meanwhile, we're also getting very disconnected from each other. And I think of all the things you mentioned, they all have contributed to it, especially COVID. But I also think that social media has really done that. So that's I think the biggest culprit. So you have this combination of like people's knowledge isn't as acceptable or as interesting because everybody has the same knowledge, and you also have an erosion of connection. So that's contributing to a mess. Actually, right now, it's causing a lot of fear. Yeah, like what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. What are we doing? Across all of those changes, are there any patterns that you've seen that are similar?
What's similar is that they're change. And so what's happening is that people are constantly having to adjust. And the folks people I work with that I can adjust the best are the ones that are most resilient, are the ones that kind of accept and embrace the change instead of trying to fight it. And, we're not, as humans, we're not biologically set up for change. Our biology says, the fear response says, as danger comes in or as danger is a difference to what we're used to, we have a fear response. We either fight or flight, right? That's sort of been well known in biology for a really long time. So we have to kind of evolve from that. And we have to make sure that we look at change differently. So our mindset's important here. And we have to practice. Definitely have to practice looking at it differently.
What do you think a lot of leaders get wrong when it comes to resistance itself?
Well, they stay stuck in the old ways, or especially like change management 101. It's like people don't have tolerance for something new, and of course, technology change is the biggest one. And so, I don't think the AI adoption is anything different from the last technology changes we've been trying to do, or any technology changes. It's just more intense. So the patterns are. I think the pattern in all of it is that we have to get better at being able to stand change and be able to evolve and embrace it and not fight it. So I think that's the biggest issue here, is that people don't want to change. They look at it as a problem rather than something interesting.
And let's unpack that a little bit because it's so true. I mean, it's about embracing it instead of fighting it because you really don't have a choice these days, is how I look at it. So what could that look like, right? For a leader going from fighting it to embracing it?
Yeah, so I have three ideas around that. So, first thing is of the role of a change agent. How is it that you wake up in the morning and feel like different than maybe the day before? In terms of the way you're going to work with your team and the way you're going to be inspirational about change. Up until even 10 years ago and even 5 years ago, change was about driving change. So all the literature and all the everyone was like driving change and getting, growth and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's important. So driving change is important. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but we also have to inspire it as well and make it okay. And so that's one thing. So waking up in the morning and having that change agent attitude, if you will. And then the mindset is you have to expect it and embrace it. So you have to recognize that resistance to change is a natural. So I talked about before the biology of it. You should expect others to resist it. That's our biology. So what do we have to do to ensure that they are okay about that? Like we can't just send an edict. So I've seen so many with AI adoption, the CEO or the board is saying, they're sending an edict like you have to do this. It's like, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense because you're then making it harder for people to learn. You're not giving them a chance to learn in the middle of this. And instead you're making it, basically cracking the whip. And that's just not going to work. And we see the literature says that this isn't working actually. So seeing change as and resistance and understanding that dynamic, seeing change as a growth and not a disruption. Okay. And being comfortable with ambiguity. So those are the ideas about like the mindset of change and how we can be as a coach, as a leader, and then the practice. So what does all this mean? It means that you have to be more empathetic, you need to be more inspirational. I've got an example. I have a guy that I work with. He's a VP of product marketing who I adore, and he's at a tech company. He is, I would say, an AI native at this point. I mean, he has really learned a lot, and he's been ahead of the curve. He also considers himself an AI whisperer, and so I love that term. And it's a certain kind of change agent. And so when his company was first, this is maybe 6 months ago, well, even a year ago, and it was company was starting to the AI adoption process. Um, he was working with a director who is actually in finance, so not in his area, but he happened to know her, and so she was saying now, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm cheating." So this is somebody who's using AI to for charts and whatever, analysis essentially. And he's like, "No, no, 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 no." So he sat with her, literally sat with her and said, "No, this is how you do it." So um, I think that more of that needs to happen. We need to put our coaching hat on and we need to be empathetic to people's experience and experiment. Let people experiment. And we got to do it now because we're already behind really. I mean, I think that most companies are behind, even tech companies are behind. So we got to get going.
I also think it's different, where we're at in the San Francisco Bay Area. I found a lot of our clients are a little bit more open and moving forward with AI adoption, where some of our customers in the Midwest are still trying to get ready to get ready. So in situations like that, what are some ways that you can reduce that fear so people feel open to want to learn? Because like you said, if people feel like there's a lot of pressure and fear, it's very hard to learn that way.
Right. So I'm going to read a quote because I don't typically do this, but I think that it's so good that I feel like I want to read it. It's from a head of AI at a Fortune 200 company, and he is also very adept and been studied in design thinking. So he understands the importance of involving people that are going to be affected by the change. So here's what he said. He said, "It's important we iterate quickly, but first we must earn trust. Talk the same language. How are AI tools helping them? So we contextualize for them by knowing their pain points, iterate with them. We identify and align on the problem, develop and rapid prototyping, and continue to iterate by getting feedback." Okay, this is classic design thinking. So understanding from the perspective of the people that it's going to affect, involving them, whether it's, a committee on AI. I mean, I don't, you call what you want, the guru committee. I don't think AI guru committee. I don't care what you call it, but involve the peoples with any change management. This is what we should have been doing all along. So this is just bigger and more intense because of this, what I think I talked about before. We have a no-collar economy now. Knowledge is not as important. Get the knowledge. You can get the knowledge from AI. So then what are you going to do with the knowledge? So that's what we need to be teaching people. How do they iterate? How do they discern? How do they judge? How do they critique? Any of this. Name one. Pick one. Any of those.
So if I'm a leader and I'm just getting started with AI, what is a practice or an idea that I can get started with myself to try it out?
It's a great idea because we need to model it. That's what I've been having to do as a model for my own company and then for other coaches is that I have to practice it myself. So you got to choose which which GPT you want to do. I mean, I happen to use Claude for a lot of reasons. I actually tested 3 different ones for about a year and decided to go study with Claude. So now it knows me more, right? So I think it's important that you choose. Now, I think it's important that companies or teams choose one that everybody's consistent with. I think that's possible. And I know that some people are, it's harder because the company is dictating that. And I don't think it's a problem. Like just choose one. It's like of those 3 or Gemini, there's probably 4. Just decide, and then you can get better at it, and the robot gets to know you. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing would be whether it's marketing or finance or HR or IT. I think that it's important that we use use cases and that you have a chance to iterate together. And I mean that's important here. But again, this isn't any different from any other change management process we've been doing. But is it this time it's more intensified.
It is more intensified. And like you said earlier, it's really important that the leaders, especially the C-level executives, have a little grace, right? Because if you really want these things to work, these experiments to work, you're going to have a lot of failure. And there's so much concern as well around how do I get my ROI out of these massive investments? But things are moving fast, but they're also not going to happen perfectly out of the box.
No, not at all. And there's a term in design thinking we call fail fast. And so we need to give the folks grace, certainly grace in failing and being able to pick it up again, get feedback. I mean, it really is very similar to a lot of the designers I work with. We need to encapsulate what they have been doing for years. Heads of design I've worked with at Pinterest um, and Yahoo and Apple, and they have a process where every Friday you're critiquing at each other's work, and that's like a really good process. And we all should be setting that up. It's like whatever you're working on, let's look at it together and get used to the idea of feedback. And using the robot too, using AI to help you with the feedback as well. So because you're in a partnership now, it's not just about it's you and the agent or you and ChatGPT or whatever you're using. And so they're another partner in the discussion. Great. That's weird to get used to, but I think that's important. And we got to get used to that.
I couldn't agree more. So you're not adversaries, right? You can't look at it that. You got to look at it as a partnership. But what do you do if you're let's say a senior director and you have a leader who's risk adverse when it comes to leveraging AI technology?
About 6 months ago, this is really a true story. I have a head of AI for a big company, okay, I was on the phone with them, and just like earlier that day or on Zoom, and he hadn't even processed yet. One of his directors, this is a director, okay, one of his directors wrote a note on Slack to everyone saying, you shouldn't be using, ChatGPT, or you shouldn't be using, basically, I don't even know which one it was. It was ChatGPT or whatever. Said this to all of engineering, and so it went to like thousands of people. And so talk about risk averse, So I said, well, what are you gonna do? Like, what's your plan? He's like, well, I got to talk to him. I said, yeah, you do. so, so he went and talked to him, and obviously needed to. So here's where we need to use empathy. It's like we need to understand, like, where are you at, and what's causing this, and what are you afraid of, and you got to get into it and ask him what's going on. So he did that, and it's better now. Of course, that was 6 months ago, so it's way better now. But that stuff's happening. People are really doing kind of crazy things. It's a bit crazy to say it to everybody.
Yeah, but that we're humans, so that's happening. What else do you see some of the organizations you work with or maybe even just see out there that they're getting wrong with some of these AI adoption projects?
Well, they're trying to make people do stuff. That's the main. I mean, that's the main thing. And so that's one thing. And then and the other thing is they're not measuring it. So that you're not gonna you have to make sure you're measuring what you want to get. So to get ROI, you have to be able to measure. So whatever that is. So if you're trying to put together how to do analysis in financial business as a business analysis. Okay, so what is it going to mean if you're better at it using the AI? So um, I don't think that we're at the point where the efficiencies and the productivity are there yet, but it takes practice. I mean, so it's like we're also seeing literature is like, basically um, being critical about not seeing productivity. It's like, well, yeah, so it's okay. We're only a year in, well, we're actually 3 years in, but I mean, a year into where it really has been more ubiquitous. It's like, it's okay that we don't have productivity yet. There will be productivity. There's no question that I think it's like magic. Like when I put in data and it comes back in 3 minutes, or if I'm going to Japan, like I did a month ago, and I want to go and figure out my itinerary for the day. And I say, I want to go to these 3 places and in this neighborhood and find a lunch place for me. And it happens, it gives me in 2 minutes instead of 2 hours it would take me to figure that out. I'm like, okay, that's magic. So I get to have 2 more hours just to run around Tokyo. I think that we need to look at it that way, that it's magic and sometimes it's slop and sometimes it's has mistakes. There's no question about it. But that's why there's humans to figure that out. We have to make sure that we're looking at it so that we're critiquing it, we're overseeing it. You still have to have humans to oversee what's going on. You can't expect that the robot's going to be perfect. It's not at all. It's better than it was.
I think there's two great points that you're bringing up right there. Um, and starting with the second is the humans need to be responsible for what the AI produces. You can't just throw something out there and say, well, ChatGPT or Claude produced it. No, it's on you to be able to be responsible for it. So that requires output verification, knowing what you're sending out there. The second thing that you brought up earlier around your calendar, I think that's a great way for leaders who are maybe adverse to AI or haven't started using it that much is start using it for personal things like grocery planning or creating an itinerary for your schedule. We went to Nashville, and my wife was shocked at how it came up with great planning for a 4 and 8-year-old. And if you take that into your personal life, and then it starts carrying over to your professional life as well, not just for yourself but for your organization.
Yeah, no question about it. That we need to take responsibility and work on it personally. And you can share those ideas too. Like when you're in a group together and you're collaborating, it's like, yeah, share those ideas as a way to get used to it. And then focus it on professional. So we have to be the models. Like we can't expect other people to do stuff if we're not doing it too. Now we don't have to be native. I don't think we need to be AI native. I think that we need to go from functional to fluent. And so I mean if you're nothing, then go from nothing. If you're just starting out, going from just starting, so learner to functional. But most of us, hope in tech, are probably going from functional to fluent. So what is it going to take for us to do that? And I'm going to say this: it's like it's not just about learning the AI skills themselves and getting better at prompting. If you're a good person, if you're a good questioner, then you're probably going to be good at prompting, and you can certainly get better at prompting. So, but it's not just that. It's putting on your hat, your critical thinking hat, because we have to be able to take the data and do something with it. Because the data is the same. If you put in the same prompt as I put in, you're going to get the same data. But what distinguishes you from me? It's our creativity, it's our discernment, it's our judgment. And so we have to be able to hone those skills too. So we can't just hone our AI skills. I actually think of that's part of AI. It's not just the AI, the technology itself. It goes together.
The other thing you mentioned last time we spoke, which I think is I've repeated a bunch of times, are all those things right there, but also taste plays a major role when it comes down to it. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So I was at a conference last week called Upscale, and it was about design and AI, and it was so interesting. And one of the things they were talking about, because there's a lot of designers in there, a lot of creative people, is this idea of spend more time on the idea instead of the making. heretofore, we do a lot of work around the making and the building and making sure that it's, there's all these things in the processes of that. The AI can do that now. But what about the idea? And so the idea means you have to understand the market, okay? Understand the customer, understand what they need, get them involved. So one is empathy. That's empathy, right? And then we need to brainstorm ideas about what's going to help them. And I mean, it can be anything from a new software product. It can be a new process. It could be a new coaching process. I mean, it could be anything. So, but it means that we have to be ahead of it and we have to create something that's different than what has been done in the past. That's taste.
Now, when it comes to being ahead of it, how do you help somebody who's a change agent, I guess, prepare for, I don't know, things not going right, to help alleviate some of that fear for themselves and their team?
I use the sandpile metaphor for this because I just love this metaphor. So you want the sand, you know that the sand pile, what happens when you put grains of sand on a sand pile, you do not know when it's going to break, okay, or fall, right? And so I think if we have that metaphor for life, that as much as we plan for taste, for change, for any of this, we can't predict it. So if we can get better at going with the flow when things happen that we don't expect, then better. So someone asked me once, like, how do you like define resilience? And I said, well, expect change. Like just pure and simple. If we expect it to happen, then we aren't going to be as crazed by it or upset by it or and I guess I read an article about this and I use the example that I'll say personally that I mentioned Japan a couple times and my son is there now studying. But when we were there last summer to figure out where he wanted to go to school, he's at a language school, and he's 20 now, so he's 19 at the time, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to go out, Mom," and I said, "Okay." So I said, "What time are you going to be back?" And he said, "Oh, about midnight." I'm like, "Okay." And Tokyo is probably the safest big city in the world, so that's the good part. But he didn't get back till 2:30, and so that 2.5 hour time period was really testing my own resilience for sure. As a mom, as a leader, you're not there yet because your kids are smaller than mine, but that I didn't expect that. I mean, I should have because 12 could turn into 1. That's okay, but then when it became 2:30. It was hard. So I have to just, taste my own medicine here. And so I had to do a lot of breathing and he wasn't answering his phone, of course. And so I had to do what I tell other people to do, which is do a lot of breathing and do a lot of and it's gonna be okay. And he get back and he was okay and everything like that. But that's important for sure.
Well, when he first got back, what did you say to him?
He was a little bit tipsy. So I said, drink some water and go to bed.
I'm sharing that because I can imagine somebody who's a leader right here where something goes wrong and your initial reaction is just to jump all over them right there. And I think what's really, really key, what you said is do this and we'll talk about it in the morning. So basically, you're giving yourself pause to have this type of conversation because we all know, again, if you just jump down somebody's throat when something that doesn't go right, they're going to be hesitant to try something next time. So I think that that's important. Do you have any other examples of customers that you've worked with who have maybe done a good job of anticipating something going wrong with the AI project or something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll look at both. So when they aren't doing it well, it's because I guess the fear response is coming up, right? So when the fear response comes up, you're either fighting or flighting. So most of the people I work with are fighting, and they know themselves. They've got to be able to douse that a bit, or their boss is saying you got to douse that a bit, right? So that's why they're hiring me, right? To help them. So what is it they can do? To get better at this. And so when they want to fight, they've got to be able to realize a couple of things. One is that stress that you're feeling, it can be a good thing. It can equal pressure. And so all of us who are in the knowledge field here we want some of that stress, so that we can feel the pressure. But when the pressure turns into anxiety, and then that fear response means that you have some choices. And this is all happening very quickly, Damon, right? So when the stress causes, or the change, or whatever the change is causing anxiety, you don't want it to go to worry and rumination. That's what you're kind of avoiding. Okay. But that initial response of when it's very, very acute, yeah, you've got to be able to notice inside yourself, that you're getting upset, and that you could be having a explosion, or just a snide comment, or getting on someone's case, or cracking the whip, or whatever there's many things, yelling, that can happen, right? So what is it going to take to come back to yourself and not do that? So breathing is certainly the number one thing to do. Is that, and before you even breathe, you've got to notice that, hey, I might get really upset right now. We do this as parents. This happens as parents all the time, where you get really pissed at your kid and you have to decide, are you going to yell at the kid today? Is this the yelling at the kid time, or is this not, or whatever it is? This happens all the time. Because I could have certainly yelled at him when he got back to the hotel. And so with leaders, you can yell, or you can hold, breathe, decide what you're going to say. The best thing to do is ask a question. So the first thing is notice in your body where it is. Second thing is breathe. Third thing is ask a question. You are not going to go wrong if you ask questions rather than yell at somebody or make a statement or whatever, or be critical.
Do you have any go-to questions for that situation?
Tell me what happened.
Yeah. Something
Tell
to
me
buy
more
yourself
about
time, right?
You're buying yourself time. Tell me what happened, what was behind what you were thinking about, what was going on. Um, what do you, and then if you want to go into coaching mode, it's okay. So what happened? What do you want to try next? What do you want to try so far? What have you tried so far on this? What are you going to try next? Those are the best coaching questions in terms of if somebody is screwing up.
Let's say I'm somebody who's damaged a relationship by jumping down somebody's throat, and I need to go into repair mode. And I should have looked at it like, okay, this person is going out there and they're using Claude and to make better decisions, but maybe things didn't go right, and I jumped down their throat, and now I've kind of damaged that trust. How do I go about repairing that trust?
Yeah, this is obviously happens all the time, not just not just with AI adoption. It's at the basis of our practice, really, that people are getting upset about, and they have to pull back. So, if you aren't able to pull back in the moment, then certainly apologizing after the moment, whether it's a minute later, or if it's 10 minutes later, or if it's 2 hours later, or if it's 2 days later, you need to apologize for sure. If you're jumping down someone's throat, you need to apologize. And you might have all the excuses about why they screwed up and all that, but it doesn't matter. There's no excuse for yelling at somebody. So apologizing, making sure that they understand that, you were maybe in a different place. Maybe we often go in sideways, like there's somebody else going on with us, and that's why we're upset. And so we're jumping on someone's throat, not because of them, but because something else is going on. So you might want to admit that and notice that and move on. So you're apologizing, and then you need to fix it because there's still like potentially a fix involved, so that you can get into that. So, what have you tried so far to figure this out, and what could you try next? Those great coaching questions.
No, those are. And getting back to the pressure part that you were talking about, I assume it's kind of very similar to what you did when you were coaching basketball, right? Because pressure gets on you right there, and you're in the moment, and so it's kind of the same thing, right? You gotta deal with it in the situation and get clear.
So you of course brought up our commonality of sports. We both discovered that earlier when we talked, which is great. Yeah, I was a volleyball coach and basketball coach and played as well. And I don't think there's probably any other way that's better than sports to get us prepared to be in corporations and in business, because you are under pressure, whether you're an individual athlete or a team athlete. Both are perfect and they work great. I also think being on a team means that you understand how important it is to have the conversations with people when things don't go right. And I don't know how much you follow the Giants, but I mean, Matt Chapman is still like feeling like he's, I don't know, the fans are all over him because he yelled at Casey Schmidt to catch the effing ball, right? And so those of you who are Giants fans, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, go, that's great. I mean, I was all into that. Like, I was like, there should be no reason why you can't do that. And then the problem was the camera caught him. And so, they could totally see what he was saying. And it's like, that's part of sports. And it's with women and men. And it's like, yeah, catch the effing ball. And no problem. They're going to go off and, give each other a hug later. It's no problem. And so that's part of the apology thing. It's like, hey, but hey, I hope I was, was okay. So that's a direct response, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm pretty intense when it comes to winning and perfection, and that's also about success is better than perfection. So I think that having those experiences has really prepared me to be a coach and to be an executive coach.
It's tough though because you got to balance I'm like you, I want to win. I don't necessarily need to be perfect, but I want to win. But we talked a lot about empathy. So it's how do you balance that winning with having empathy for the guy who dropped the ball?
Yeah, and literally, there's a lot of dropping of the ball in corporations. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like I'm teaching what I need to learn as well, right? So my intensity had to be balanced by the empathy, and so that's why I got really really good at asking questions to balance it. So whenever somebody talks about when they're in a front of people or they're either in a one-on-one or in a group, and they say, well, what should I do if I'm getting upset, or what should I do if the other way, it's like, what should I do if I'm not able to get in, to the conversation? It's like this the same answer: ask a question, and you might have to interrupt to ask a question sometimes. But that to me is the way to counter the catch the effing ball.
No, absolutely. Now you've been working with who I met you, Ethan Evans and Jason, and you have your class that you do together on Maven, and you've been doing these webinars and get-togethers. What has changed the most over the last year when you've talked about AI adoption? Is it, I'll preface that with, are we seeing more projects actually work now? Because, about what was about 9 months ago, we talked about the MIT study where 95% of projects were failing. I don't know if things are getting better that you're seeing out there.
It's a great question. And it's hard to answer because there's like so much out there, right? But I'll keep it to what we know. So yes, Ethan and I was Ethan's coach at Amazon, and so we teach a class called Cracking the C-Suite in the AI economy, and we actually changed the name of the class to accommodate what's going on. And because I think there is a difference now. It's like it's harder to get noticed. It's harder to stand out, and especially in the AI economy, especially with the Zoom. So most of the class is about one, how to be strategic and influential, how to have executive presence, and then the piece around the being a change agent in terms of how do you scale your culture is what you're referring to specifically. And so what I'm seeing that's different is that I actually think that there's many more use cases. There's like people are practicing more. Well, first of all, there's just more people using the tools. I mean, I think that companies are deciding that they're going to, zero in on one so that they can use, so that there can be more knowledge. The AI is learning the people and learning the company more. The C-suite is noticing that the employees are frustrated, I think, more of the time, so that they're not being so strident, I think. So that's happening more. I think that there's more of a learning flavoring going on. And of course, that's what we're espousing. So I guess we notice it, we look at it as well. And I think that, so Maven has been really good about uh, having us on their platform, and they have a lot of classes about AI. But as I said before, it's not just about the AI tools. You have to be able to manage them both and be able to learn both, because they can't stand alone. Just like critical thinking can't stand alone, you have to have the knowledge to critique against. Well, same with having the AI skills. You have to be able to get better at the AI skills, so get better at the prompting, but also get better at the critique. That's what's going to stand you apart from other people and from other teams, frankly.
Have you found for yourself or for your customers that your critical thinking skills have actually improved since starting to leverage AI?
Oh gosh, I think that's a really good question, and I don't know if I have enough evidence to say if it's improved. I mean, I think that so I can't say from a measurement perspective, I can just say anecdotally that they have it's kind of a requirement. So it's not a matter of like has it, it's like it has to. So I think that heretofore, if you're a software engineer and you're a coder, I mean, you're gonna have to get better at analysis. You're gonna have to get better at taking the data and doing something with it, and then taking it to your boss and your boss's boss and say, "Here's my opinion, my point of view." So anything we've been teaching about critical thinking and about having a point of view and showing that point of view, having the influence with that point of view, is this exacerbated now. It's so you got to get better at it no matter what. So I'm not answering your question directly because I don't have that kind of data, but I do know that if you're not using critical thinking along with the AI, then you're going to be behind. So let me give you a metaphor. You've got a tandem bike, and you're in the front, the human's in front, okay, the robot's in the back, and we're gonna be partners. But if you don't have critical thinking skills, the robot doesn't matter. The knowledge doesn't matter.
So true. And you mentioned influence a little earlier. Do you have a tip on how somebody can leverage AI or just leverage what they're doing to help influence not only the people that report to them, but maybe even the people they report to?
I look at influence as strategic influence. Like I can't kind of separate them. So influence for the sake of influence doesn't really matter. But if you need to be strategic about it, so what AI does is it allows you to understand the landscape of whatever you're trying to learn better, more deeply. So if I'm trying to learn, if I've got a client, I've got a PayPal client in Europe, and I want to learn more about the European market, I'm going to use AI to help me understand what's been happening in the European market and fintech for the last 5 years, let's say. That will take me 2 hours instead of 2 days to learn, or 10 minutes instead of 2 hours to learn about what's going on in the market by using AI. But okay, that's great. So I have the data, but I need to do something with it. So I have to decide how am I going to use that data to help my client. And in his case, it's the same with him. When he's trying to understand what's going on in sales and in the market, he's using the same thing. He's looking at the data as well. But he's got to interpret that data then and decide and distill like what about that data is important for him and for his boss and for his boss's boss. Okay. So it's his job to figure that out critically. So most people are pretty good at taking data. Again, we have more data now, but taking the data, the lay of the land, and being able to distill it. But then it's the messaging. So the influence part is taking that particular data that you decide is most important, that's going to maybe move the needle for the company or move the needle for sales or whatever, and then saying to their boss, here's why. And so laying out the messaging that's going to be important. And the messaging includes who is it you're trying to influence? How do you know that person? What is important in terms of the criteria they use to make decisions? Are they going to need data? Are they going to need competitive analysis? Are they going to need understanding the 5 different customers and what they're all doing? Are they going to need the relationships and understand what's going on from that perspective as well? So there's more to it than just the data, and that's why we look at influence as a strategic influence, understanding and exploring the big picture, distilling it, and then messaging to the right audience.
Absolutely. And the messaging part is so important. I was, as I was preparing for this, I went through your podcast. Can you give me an example from a recent episode that you had around how AI has helped in the decision making process?
I think that we've talked about that a little bit as far as ensuring that you're taking the right data and deciding which of it that's most important, and then applying that to the particular audience. And so I don't think it's that different from what I've already said. I think what we do though is we don't put enough emphasis on the audience, on who it is, and that could be one person, or it can be the board, or it can be many people. I think that understanding how that audience ticks makes a big difference in terms of the decision making.
It can even be the same data, but for different audiences. And one of the things that I've done in the past with Claude is I'll say, okay, I need to present this data, one to the board, two to my sales team, three to maybe even a customer. Can you help me position this in different ways, and even tell me what am I doing right or am I doing wrong with some of the ideas I have around it?
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, Claude can actually help you do that. Yeah, for sure. And again, it's like, I mean, I had somebody come to me who was a potentially new client, and he had found us through ChatGPT. This is about 6 months ago. Found us through ChatGPT, and he wanted to have all these questions about, what do we do with coaching? How many times a month? What do we do in the coaching sessions? All these great questions. At the very end, he says, "So why should I choose a coach in real life or Zoom versus just using ChatGPT?" So I chuckled and I said, "Well, great question." I said, "So you want to work on executive presence, right?" "Yes." "Okay, well, so you go on ChatGPT or whatever, Claude, and you say, all right, what are the 5 ways I can get better executive presence?" Or in the case you said, like, what are the, you know, 5 ways we can get better at decision making or um, whatever you're trying to do. So I said, "So great. So you look at those 5 ways. If I'm your coach, I'm going to know which of those 5 ways is going to be best for you. And I'm going to be able to give you feedback on, let's say, an interview process you're doing, or if you're presenting or whatever. I'm going to be able to pick out the most important things because I've been seeing you over and over." Now, the robot could do some of that, but it's not. It's a nuance that a person can do because they've seen you over and over. So that's the difference. So as good as the robot is, we still have to have the human touch, I think, to really. First, plus there's warmth to it. Okay, we're actually being funny or we're being warm about the way we're explaining to it. It's not cold and sterile. But also, we're able to pick out and curate which one's going to be best for this person based on how we know them and based on what we've seen them do already. And the curation part of it, and then we're back to taste, right? The curation part of it is the most important.
A great example with that is at the beginning of all this, everybody said, don't sign up to be a radiologist anymore because that role's done. But I think now you'll see that there's more radiologists than ever because, sure, you can get through many more scans, but there's the nuances. There's a bedside manner in reading them. And it kind of falls along the same lines as what you're talking about, difference between a human coach and an AI coach. It could do some of the work, but it can't do the most of the work or even get through the curated pieces of even what's most important for that specific client, at least not today.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know what's going to be like in 5 years, but it the curation of a doctor or like, I mean, if you coach, doctor, financial advisor. I mean, I can study financial advisor. I mean, I can study finances and get pretty good, but then I'm going to want my financial advisor to then say, yeah, you're right. This path is right. This path isn't. Because they've studied this for a long time. They know. And of course, they're doing also their own studying as well. But I still want somebody to basically, I think that the best word would be to reiterate it or to tell me I'm on the right path.
Speaking of right path, when it comes to the work that you do with coaching with at Mariposa, what kind of clients are you looking for that would reach out to you and you're like, okay, this is a great fit?
Most of our clients are ones who are leaders who know that they want to learn and they want to get better. So sometimes the people that really need us aren't asking for coaching because they don't think they need a coach, right? And so I really feel like we get the creme de la creme, we get the cream of the top because these folks are already super successful and they are wanting to learn in a different way or wanting to learn in a more deep way, or they're wanting to shift things so that they're not so overwhelmed. And most of the people that come to us are just overwhelmed because they're getting too much pressure and they need to figure out how they can alleviate some of that pressure. Okay. So again, stress is good to a certain point. And after that, if it becomes worry or anxiety or worst case rumination, where it's like over and over the patterns, then sometimes you need a psychologist and you need to do something about it through therapy or through treatment. But we're not usually in that situation. We're usually helping people just take a little pressure off by have different habits. So that's the basis of coaching.
So let's say somebody read your article on Ethan's Substack, Resistance to Resilience, and they came up to you and said, Sue, thank you very much for writing that article. What are they doing differently after reading that?
Or empathy for what they're going through and what their team is going through, and giving them the grace. You use the word grace. I like that. Uh, Grace to learn and experiment. And we got to be curious here, and understand that this is a long haul. We don't want to take the acute short term process here. We want to take the long haul, and that means that you've got to teach people to be resilient and teach people to put their curiosity hat on and experiment. That would be probably mine. I mean, there's a lot to it, but I think the experimentation is important.
Excellent. And where can our listeners connect with you at?
You can certainly send me an email, sueb@mariposaleadership.com. And you can get on LinkedIn with me. So it's Sue Bethanis. I think my name is right up there, so you can do that. And you can certainly go on our website, mariposaleadership.com. And we've been doing this for 30 years. We're actually celebrating our 30th anniversary. In fact, I was just looking at the venues for our party. So Damon, you're going to have to come to our party. So it's pretty amazing that we've been in business this long and that we get to see all this going on. And people say, why don't you retire? You can retire. I'm like, why? This is like more exciting than ever right now. Are you kidding me? It's so interesting. So interesting what's going on.
It is very interesting. And we just celebrated our 31st anniversary as well. I think that what you're doing and what we're doing is really important, because as we started this conversation, .com bust, Great Recession, COVID, we've been around the block a little bit. So we have some ideas. This is totally different, but we have some things that we can help share with us. So Sue, thank you very, very much. And for our listeners, I think what I really want you to think about is, what kind of leader are you right now, especially around AI? Are you jumping down people's backs when they're not getting things done? Are you measuring the wrong things? Are you measuring anything at all? Or are you help guiding them from being resistant to resilient by having that empathy, by having that grace? And most importantly, are you modeling the behavior, or are you just telling people do this, this, or that? Because if you're not modeling the behavior, I don't see how you could possibly expect the people on your team to do anything different and do anything and follow the ways that you want them to follow. So thank you very much, Sue. You've been awesome. And until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great time. Thank you.
Today, Damon sits down with Angus Nelson, a leadership coach, strategist, and keynote speaker who helps high performers break through plateaus and achieve success by cultivating stability.